lots of different ways to get audio and MIDI into Loopy Pro, and in this video I'm going to show you how. I've got a session set up here and I need to add a couple of things. By default, the microphone is set if you've got nothing plugged in at all. It uses the microphone of the device, whether that's an iPhone or an iPad, but if you've got an audio interface, it picks up channel 1 automatically, which is useful. But if we go into the mixer, we can prove this. So we've got input number 1, you can see that it's bouncing up and down, and if we tap that button, you can actually see there's a couple of different things. The channel strip for the loops are all done by colors. I've got 8 different loops here, all in different colors, and I've also got the one-shot set in magenta, and they can also feed back into any of the loops. Have a look at the channel strips, and you can see here on destinations, the microphone is microphone number 1, and you can see it goes out to output 1 and 2, and therefore you can hear it in the PA. But also at the same time, it's also got destinations of colors, and it means that the microphone can go to any of those colors. You can tap on there and you can say what color destinations, and these are the output channels. You've also got input channels. Now I've got an Arturia AudioFuse Studio as my audio interface, therefore though I've got lots of different inputs and outputs. Technically I've got up to 20 inputs and I've got 18 outputs, and that's because the AudioFuse has multiple ways for ins and outs. But if you had something really simple like a 2-in, 2-out audio interface, it would show you it right here. Now on channel 1, you can see I've got the microphone plugged in, and this is the Aston Stealth mic being plugged into the AudioFuse Studio. On channel number 1, I've turned the 48 volts on as well, and we can see the LEDs there going up and down as I'm talking. That's fine. It's also proof of the pudding because you can see that on the mixer that on channel 1 my balance is going up and down. Let's have a look at that, and we can actually see input channels number 1. Monitoring is on so we can hear it. Also you can monitor through selected outputs. So if you didn't want it to go to the main PA, you could turn that on to a specific output, or you could have it just a specific color. Then we've got the pre-effects and the post-effects, and then the destinations. So if you look at destinations, then we've got the same thing. Where do you want this destination to go? Now I want this going out to the main PA, which is output 1 and 2, but also at the same time, it's got color destinations. So I could say all or none, and you can specify, and that's really, really clever and really useful. Maybe you want to record the vocals. It's always going to be a drum beat, but you don't want it to come in on the yellow track, which is always going to be a guitar, but so when you play the guitar, you're not going to get any bleed into the loop. So I could turn that color destination off, and that way I won't get any bleed from the microphone when I play the guitar. That leads me nicely onto adding another channel. So bottom right hand corner again, let's go back to that plus, and we can add another color, and that's fine, and that would just add another channel strip, and that would be available to do anything you want. You could add it as a loop, you could add it as a one shot, lots of different things. But I want to add a hardware input. So if I do that, it says, cool, what do you want to add? Well, I want to add channel number 2. And you can see there, it's now brought up channel number 2, and there's nothing coming through. I've actually got the guitar plugged in on channel number 2, and if I just do that right now and play it, there we go, you can hear it. And it's playing through on channel number 2, and again, the same output. So I want it outputting to 1 and 2, and I want it outputting to all the loops as well. Let's have a look at the input. So the input, again, it's just a hardware input. You can monitor through specific out colors or just obviously the specific speaker, and it's just going on input number 2. And you can just repeat this process depending on how many inputs you have. You could then obviously set the certain things for it. And the great thing as well is obviously for the mixing side, you've got a mute, a solo, and a balance for each one. You can add effects. Maybe you want specific effects for specific channels. You could do that, no problem. So I could have an effect for the guitar on the guitar channel. I could have vocal effects on the input channel, however you want it. Now, if I get out of the mix for a second, if I had any effects, you can see they appear here. And I've got a couple of effects set up on a couple of the channels, actually on the loops themselves, but you could actually have effects on the input if you wanted to, and you can literally just tap them and turn them on and off as you see fit. Now, if you've been recording tracks on Loopy Pro and you've been saving them, you might want to get them out there in the world. And that's where today's sponsor comes in, which is DistroKid. They are the guys who are going to help you get your music to all the online stores and all the digital services around the world, of which there are now over 160 different services. Places you wouldn't even think of, things like Facebook and TikTok, are now actually using people's music, and you can get paid for people using your music. Think about Instagram and Instagram stories. Every time someone uses a piece of music there for their story, they use it as a background music, they get paid, and so can you. Now, other distributors actually charge you per release, but DistroKid have a different price structure, which is one price per year, which is ridiculously low at $19.99. And I'm here to make that even cheaper for you. So we can give you 7% off your first annual membership with the link that's on the screen. It's also in the description box below. Now you may be using looping on your own, or you could be doing this as part of a full band, and that's fine. DistroKid have a way to split the money for you, so all your members sign up to DistroKid and they can split the money however you want. DistroKid have loads of cool promos like promo cards. They even have a meme video creator, which I've just used recently for our outfit, which is Tokyo Wasteland, just for a bit of fun. There's even different price structures, so if you're just one person, $19.99 will be enough. If you're a solo artist but you're also in a band, then you've got Musicians Plus. You can have 2 different outfits, and also at the same time you can dictate the date of your release and lots of other features as well. And if you're the kind of person who actually is in multiple things and you organize it all, there's even a label tier as well. Remember, you get 7% off no matter which tier you choose, so click the link that's in the description box below and start distributing your music today. And a quick thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring this video. Now, let's head back to the mixer. So we've done color and we've done a hardware input. The next one along is an audio unit input. Now an audio unit input is something internal. So it'd be another app that you may have, which could be drums or a synthesizer or some other app, maybe a sampler, and you can bring it in to Loopy. So let's add an audio unit input. When I tap this, it tells me all the ones that are available. So I've got a couple of here. I've got Housemarque 1, I've got Ravenscroft, and that's the one I'm going to use, but I want to use it with the piano. So I'll go Ravenscroft 275, and you can see it comes in on its own channel. And if I tap it, it's actually launched the app inside Loopy, so I don't have to go out of the page and go back in again. I don't have to put this into background audio as you move around different ones. It just brings it in as an interface. What's really nice as well is you can actually press the little arrows and make this full screen if you want to. If it's a full screen unit, some things like FRMS, they're really, really big and you want some adjustment there. But this app is pretty simple and it's only got a couple of things to play with. Now what's really clever is if you don't have one of these, a MIDI keyboard, you can actually bring up a keyboard as well, and that is on Loopy Pro. So Loopy Pro's got that kind of built in that it'll understand that there's a keyboard there, and it'll just play straight away. There's no real aftertouch there though, and obviously it's a bit difficult to play on the screen, but you can get away with it. And it's there for you if you did full screen and then did keyboard. Of course, the keyboard comes up as full screen on the bottom here, which is really nice. But I want to play with that, and actually I want to play with a couple of MIDI control devices, but I've only got one plug on my iPad, and that's going into the audio interface. So the nice little workaround is that I'm using the WIDI Master. Now if you know on my channel, I'm a massive fan of the WIDI Master. It's a Bluetooth MIDI controller that you can plug into anything that's MIDI, 5-pin DIN. You can even get the WIDI jack for the jack versions. It'll just send the MIDI messages over Bluetooth, really low latency, as low as 3 milliseconds. So all I need to do is I need to tell Loopy that that's there. It's switched on, I've got the WIDI Master plugged into the back, and it's just not doing anything right now. So all I need to do is just go up to here and go up to MIDI control. So at the moment it's not connected, and you can see I've got the APC40, it's plugged in, but we need to go to Bluetooth connections. So if I click that, it's found it already, it's there, and that's not Loopy Pro doing that, that's the iPad itself. It goes Bluetooth MIDI devices, it's found it. So we just go WIDI Master input stroke output not connected, give it a tap, and then what it'll do is it'll connect it straight away. And then the WIDI Master, I've done a video all about that, but it's now gone solid blue on the WIDI Master, which means it's connected. And we can go done. Now the iPad and the keyboard are not connected physically, they've just got the Bluetooth. And there's no sound. And the reason for that is because you need to tell the app where the MIDI is going to come from. So you can see on Ravenscroft or any of the audio unit devices that there is a little gear icon. So you need to tap on that and you need to tell it what MIDI source it's going to go to. And it also has destination. So again, monitoring, this is like the input output, and you can say MIDI sources, add a MIDI source, and then you've got a load of different options. But the option we want is WIDI Master Bluetooth. So if I click on that, that's fine. And now that works, and that's fantastic. And I can do that and repeat that process. So let's just bring in something else. Let's go another audio unit. Let's bring in FRMS, and that'll load up, and there it is there. Tell it that it's going to be the MIDI source for WIDI Master. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because now we've got the WIDI Master actually controlling both apps at the same time. So now we've got a problem. We've actually got the FRMS and we've got Ravenscroft both being controlled by the same keyboard at the same time. Maybe you just want one at a time. Now the nice simple thing is I can just mute one. So I can just mute the FRMS, and then I can just alternatively do that. And we've got both going in at the same time. You can do that straight away. Or if you've got faders, you could obviously fade them in and fade them out. It's entirely up to you. But this is the input section. You can see here the MIDI channels. We've actually got the audio unit input, and we've got the MIDI channel here. And you can see it's there, and we can actually say what you want to do with it, what range you want. Maybe you want to split it, and you can split it. So we can say all channels or just on channel 1, and then this one we'll bring in on channel 2. So now this is just channel 1, but you can see the MIDI's coming in on both, but it's not playing the FRMS, right? If I change this over to MIDI channel 1, plays it straight away. So you could actually just change which MIDI channel it's going to come in on. Of course, you could just mute it and just solo which one you want coming in. So let's have a look at our mixer, because it's getting a bit bigger, isn't it? So we've got the MIDI straight away, and you can see at the bottom there it says WIDI Master, and it's basically controlling both the Ravenscroft and the FRMS. Next is my voice, and you can see that on input number 1. We've got input number 2 here, and that's the guitar. And then we've got the audio coming in from the audio units, which is again Ravenscroft and FRMS. Then after that, we've got all our loops. And then finally, we've got our output, which is the master, and you can see the master there for all the sound that's coming out of Loopy Pro. The next one we've got is Add MIDI. Well, hang on, I thought we just did that. Well, actually, you can click Add MIDI, and you can just bring in the MIDI of something without bringing in the audio unit. If you add an audio unit and then you tell it which MIDI source it is, it'll add that channel anyway. But if you just want to do it manually, you can add MIDI and just bring another MIDI channel in. So let's just do that now. Let's say I want the MIDI from the AudioFuse Studio, and you can see there it's coming as a channel, but it hasn't got anything attached to it whatsoever. And we could just say MIDI in, MIDI out, or move it to somewhere, or route it to somewhere on a specific channel. If you want to get rid of any of these channels, all you have to do is hold at the very top for a second, and you can click delete, and it will just take it away again. Think of this like a modular mixer that just comes and goes as you add more things. The last one is Add Bus, and this is what you'd normally find on a mixer. Now I've got a reverb on the master, so if I was to turn that on, you'll hear a little bit of reverb there. But instead of, I'll turn that off, and what we can do instead is we can actually add a bus. Now the bus is where you're going to need to send stuff over to it. It also needs to know what on earth it is. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're actually going to move this over to here. And that means that the master doesn't have any effects on it whatsoever. We've got the bus A, as it were, and this bus A has now got the reverb on. And you see I just dragged it. Now you can also add another one or add whatever you want. Now what I'm going to do is, you can see at the bottom here, we've actually got sends. So if I add a send, it says what send is it going to be. I can add it to bus A. And now what I can do is I can dial it up and dial it down and move it across, and you can see that's going in. 1, 2, 1, 2. There we go. So that's now going in, and it's a separate audio channel. So of course I can adjust this and bring it in and out. I love this, by the way. I love the way you can just adjust these by moving them out and be more precise. And I can bring that up a little bit, and we can adjust that. Now, this is a send for that. I can see how much I'm actually sending across. And I could do that for every audio input. I could do it for every loop. I could send this one over, but not send this one. It depends on what you want to do. And you can have multiple buses. So, of course, you could have all your effects on buses and adjust them accordingly. So you may want to drop something out. Maybe you don't want it affecting the actual loop. If you put an effect on the input, it's going to be recorded onto that loop. Maybe you want completely dry loops and then put the effects on afterwards. Of course, you've got lots of different things. Of course, the mixer can do so much. So you've got effects that are both pre-fade, post-fade. You've got the destinations, and that's really important. You may only want the FRMS to only go to a certain loop, or maybe just a one-shot, but you don't want it to record on certain loops. So you could record two things at the same time. I record my vocal on the red track whilst the guitar is on the yellow track, and never the between shall meet. So I could be playing and recording at the same time. Maybe I'm making a beat whilst also playing. I could record those two tracks together. So that's all the inputs and the outputs and the mixer as well. But if that's a little bit daunting and you just want to get started with Loopy Pro, then have a look at my Getting Started tutorial that's on the screen now.